All right, you think you're AI native, but what's up with all those spreadsheets? Most mid-market companies right now think they're AI enabled. They've got the HubSpot, the Notion, the Claude licenses, the whole stack. But behind the scenes, one person is quietly running month-end close in a spreadsheet. And if they leave, nobody knows how the business actually works. It's really a human problem wearing an AI costume. What real AI transformation looks like for a $50 million company is you gotta go in there, you gotta map the actual workflow, you gotta find the real spreadsheets. Not the one in the org chart, the real one. Find where the humans are doing the machine work. There, inject the AI at steps 2, 7, and 12, and suddenly your team gets back 30% of their week. And this isn't going to replace people, it's finally letting the smart people do the smart work. So I know you have that spreadsheet open right now. Is this where you're deploying AI? And if the answer is no, it's not an AI problem, it's a you problem. Welcome to AI for Founders, I'm Ryan Estes. My guest today is Justin Watt, co-founder of Switchboard, a firm that specializes in mid-market AI transformation for companies doing $50 million to $500 million a year. Justin started in psychology, not computer science, and that background is exactly why his approach to AI works when everyone else's doesn't. In this episode, you'll learn how to audit real processes before bolting on AI, why your data architecture might be lying to you, and how to actually move the needle without burning your team out. This one's for founders and operators who are serious about building a company that doesn't depend on one person's brain or one person's spreadsheet. And if this hits different, you need to be inside of our newsletter at aiforfounders.co, where we break down AI tactics, founder stories, and moves that actually work, delivered straight to your inbox. It's the unfair advantage you've been looking for, and it's completely free. Head to aiforfounders.co right now. Your future self will thank you. And if this episode made you think a little bit, leave a 5-star review on the podcast. It's the most powerful thing you can do to help another founder find it. It takes 10 seconds and it changes someone's trajectory. And finally, this episode is brought to you by Inbox Alchemy, the #1 distribution engine for founders who are done renting their audiences and ready to own it. Here's the thing, social platforms change the algorithm on you. Ad costs go up, reach goes down, but your email list, that's yours forever. Inbox Alchemy gets you 20,000 targeted subscribers in your first 6 months. Real humans who actually want to hear from you. Plus weekly founder newsletters crafted to convert, partnership opportunities that expand your reach, and a personal brand that compounds like a great investment. This is precision audience building for founders who want to dominate their niche. Stop borrowing attention, start owning it. Go to inboxalchemy.co right now. Your audience is waiting. All right, Justin, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ryan.
100%. My pleasure. So a couple of things stuck out when I was kind of doing some research on you that I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
One would be kind of like your non-traditional background. So instead of computer science, you studied psychology, and you guys are doing kind of like custom AI solutions for companies. So we'll get to that. But I think we're going to see this more and more of people coming from the humanities and not necessarily software engineering entering AI, because truly we need to understand people first. So tell me a little bit about your coming up in studying psychology and how that's kind of played into your career.
Yeah, I grew up with the parents saying you should be a lawyer, me saying I would love computer science, and I tinkered a lot growing up, but ultimately, for some reason, I thought I wanted to spend 40 hours a week in a room with people hearing their challenges, which oddly enough, that's kind of what it's become, but not the way I thought it would. So human nature just fascinates me in the way that we work as people together. And so went to undergrad for psych thinking, I wanted to be a psychologist. But about halfway through that, very quickly realized, no, I don't want to spend that, time going through undergrad and then master's and then PhD and all that fun stuff. So saw that through, but I went down the rabbit hole of development and kind of self-taught in terms of, for some reason, I thought the first language to learn would be Objective-C, which was a mistake because my goodness, it's complicated. But point being, iPhones were, just released around that time. So I thought I wanted to be an iPhone app developer. And so this combo of psychology and tech interests that kind of was lifelong led to being business analysts and then project management and then product management and all that fun stuff. And in amongst all that, working with tech companies. So analyst at a large telco and then working at IBM in projects and kind of mass software deployment and development, and then working at a product firm called MetaLab, which was fun because we got to build cool products for companies like Uber and Amazon, and we got to help design Slack and stuff like that. So I say all that to say throughout, it's been very obvious that the hardest part is always the human side. As I've come to say to my own team, of like every business challenge is a human challenge. At the end of the day, someone's miscommunicating, someone misunderstood something, and they've thrown something off track. There's human nature of politics, or trying to win, whatever it might be, or whatever the situation. Psychology comes into play, and for us, we're seeing that right now with AI so much. Which I'll stop there because we'll get into it. But it's fascinating at how much the psychological side plays into it.
Absolutely. I mean, just client work in general, becomes just you have to master psychology ultimately, because the difference between a happy client and a sad client oftentimes is, do they like you? Because it goes a long way, because client work is always challenging. There's always hurdles to overcome. There's always personality and politics issues, like you mentioned. I guess what's kind of interesting about client work, maybe what I like about it and why I like working in business is, I don't want to say it's transactional in like a pejorative way, but it is. It's like, okay, yeah, you're going to show up with your sack of issues to this call. I'm going to show up with mine. We're going to put those completely on the side, and we're going to tackle this one specific problem that is within the scope of what we're working on, and everybody knows their role. For me, it's a lot less messy than like normal relationships.
Yeah, it's all usually in service of a goal. Like you're not there to your point, the transactionality of it is, you're not there to build a life together and sign legal paperwork where you're joined at the hip forever. It's more so we have a shared goal. You're bringing your skill set and experience to it. I'm bringing my skill set and experience to it, and let's find out the best way to work together. That's part of why I like client work, because you get the variety. It's not just the layer of personalities. It's factoring all the differences in industries and business types and complexity of their size, or whether that's large or small. It's just fascinating to kind of navigate. Some people dread it, but I find it fascinating and enjoyable.
Yeah, well, and all the subtext is kind of, it's all there. It's the cues. I mean, you understand how high the stakes are. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get this right, this could ruin people's lives.
Yep.
No doubt about it. And oftentimes you can feel that weight in their voice. You can see the weight on their forehead, but you don't go into that. And this is maybe a later development. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was kind of push to get into some of that stuff. Bring your whole self to work, which in my opinion was a complete disaster.
Yeah, because by the nature of business, there has to be some formality around it, because the objective isn't to bring every traumatic experience and all your baggage as a human. It is to show up in service of whatever the goal is shared with each other. But yeah, to your point, like that air of radical candor and bring your whole self. There is definitely benefits of, we're not robots, but at the same time, there's a line that you can go too far with it.
Totally. And walking that line, I thought was kind of helpful for the time. Radical Candor is a great example, because team brought me that book and was like, hey, I think we should like dive into this. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm cool with whatever. And so I read the book and kind of some of the tactics I was talking about. And so, they're coming to me and I was like, hey guys, I don't know about you, but I'm unbelievably sensitive. If you guys like come at me hard, I'm from the 90s. I will, you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, that's the fascinating thing too, is like you could be the perfect person and you know exactly how to communicate, but you still can't possibly know how the other person will react. And you could say something in the most subtle, tactful way, but they still, take everything as an affront. Like there's just, again, going back to that psychology of it, you can only control so much. So why risk that radical candor when you don't know what's going to blow up in your face or not?
Yeah, it was a funny time because, everyone's kind of experimenting with nonviolent language and things like that. And so if you weren't subscribed to that and you try to bring those conversations to people, that stuff will go out the window immediately. You'd be like, okay, Justin, I'm feeling that when you talk about client work, it's triggering my response to be blah, blah, blah. If someone is like, what?
Yeah, I think some folks might weaponize it, but at the same time, the benefit of it is that if the only constant is change, I think it was a time where people were looking for change. Of like, we can't act like it's the 80s, 90s business stuff anymore of, the Silicon Valley, everyone's in a hoodie and sweatshirt. As you probably recall, there was an era too where like, well, they're not professional. They have no idea what they're doing. It's like, but times have changed. Like, we're different as a society now. And I think that was just another example of society has changed. So maybe we overcorrect to try to find the new normal, but it helped.
Yeah, and what I really took out of that period, which was actually helpful, was kind of like the emphasis on power dynamics. And, me as a leader, I'm not afraid to lead, and I believe in kind of like a benevolent tyranny.
Yeah.
Usually gets a organization moving, but where I would feel a little bit insecure is I always want to be bros and homies with my staff,
Right.
men and women alike,
Yeah.
and so oftentimes by trying to be peers, then you're not really respecting a power dynamic that comes with that. It's unstabilizing or destabilizing, you
Yeah,
know.
to me the power dynamic feels like it's in the wrong place when it's clear that a leader has to win, whether that's a decision and a debate, whatever it is. Like that's what I try to bring, at least to my team. Like this is a meritocracy in the sense that I love to be told I'm wrong. If you can tell me why your idea is better, I'd love to hear that.
100%. Yeah. I love that. That's super helpful. And also maybe, just getting a little bit older, it's like, it's not going to be good for the team if they're doing a fun team bonding thing. And then there I am, overperforming and
Yeah, the dynamic is because to where this all started, like we're still human. We still have to connect on a level beyond, well, this is your title, this is your status, your paycheck, whatever it might be. Like we're still human.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, a psychology background in any profession is going to be a great advantage because at least it makes you sensitive to the people around you, which ultimately I think leads to like kindness and compassion, which are goals of mine. In the era that we're in now, however, we also have to start to look at our tools almost as human, and because they're presenting themselves as human. Casual language. If we're talking about LLMs, we're talking about utilizing AI and also humanizing these tools because more and more the way we interact with them is either in chat or with voice commands or things like that. So, kind of understanding what's best for humans may, in the end, become what's best for the machines.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and you mentioned this earlier, but it's fascinating to watch this shift in, given that LLMs and where AI is at has first come for software development more than any other profession, and you've watched product. If you think of, product building as a mix of software development, product management, design, et cetera, just software development being, call it quote unquote, solved with AI, it's imploding on itself. And now people are saying, what are the roles anymore? And how do we even work together anymore? And I think people are forgetting like this is just the start. Like we don't actually know, just because you can talk to it like a human doesn't mean it's taking your job. And I think that's this weird equation of just because you can talk to it like a human, we have to treat it like one. Yeah, it's fascinating to watch.
Well, and statistically, that hasn't displaced any jobs.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
there's like the AI washing where if somebody needs to lay off somebody, they're like, oh, it's AI. But it's like, no, it's not. That was mismanagement,
No.
2, 3 years ago when you guys were hiring and you brought in dead weight. If anything, I think AI for computer programmers is going to create a massive amounts of jobs and opportunities because in a sense, we all become junior developers. And I mean, the
Yeah.
folks that I'm talking to, like they're working at a clip I've never seen before. Every week, I sit down and ask myself one question. What do founders actually need to know about AI right now? Not the think pieces or the stuff that sounds impressive, the real useful put it to work today stuff. Then I write it up, send it to you in your inbox free. That newsletter is called AI for Founders, and I built it because I was tired of wading through hit pieces and people that are afraid of the future. Each issue, I break down the tools worth your time, the strategies that are working, and the ways you can use AI to grow your company without burning out or getting left behind. Thousands of founders read it every week, and I'd love for you to be one of them. Subscribe for free at aiforfounders.co. 3 seconds to sign up, and I promise it's worth it. In 3 years, AI fluency will be a baseline expectation for every college grad, not a differentiator, it'll be a requirement. The students getting ahead are the ones building that skill right now, in high school and college, before it becomes table stakes. AInativestudent.com is the program doing that. Weekly one-on-one coaching, live cohort sessions, on-demand courses, and the fastest growing AI chat for students, all tailored to your student's specific career path. Pre-med, they learn how AI is transforming diagnostics. Pre-law, they learn legal AI tools. Business, they learn to think like an AI power operator. One flat membership, less than a private tutor, cancel anytime, and if you're a founder listening to the show, you already know the cost of falling behind. Don't let your kid pay that price. Go to AInativestudent.com, apply in a couple minutes, and get your student into the cohort that changes their trajectory. AInativestudent.com and send them to the chat. It's totally free.
Well, and getting to be in the trenches with AI and chatting with like so many different leaders every day, almost less than 10%, I would argue less than 5% of the time is the conversation ever about, if this goes well, we get to lay off our company, or half our company. The conversation is always, there is an endless amount of work to do for us as a company to achieve our goals. So our goal is to get these smart people that we've hired more time back for more important things to move the needle on growing the company, whether that's better margins, better revenue, whatever it might be. The conversation is almost never around the layoff side of it, and which is why it's fascinating, to your point, the AI washing. It's very obvious that it's a PR machine covering up poor mistakes or poor choices years ago.
It's just so vulgar about like all those frontier model CEOs, the trillionaire autistic people, where that's all they were doing was like scaring the crap out of everybody. Oh yeah, you don't need to save for the future. That's what Elon said. There's not going to be any jobs. We're not going to have to work. We'll have UBI, like all this like phantasmal stuff. And I just didn't understand at the time who that was serving. And I know it was just a big ploy so that they could, get on their customers' P&L away from, software and SaaS budgets and get into HR budgets, because that's where the big money is. It's like, oh, you're not spending 120,000, you're saving 60,000, But again, I just don't like that kind of marketing, and they're all doing it. They still kind of do it, but I think everyone's seeing behind the curtain enough to be like, yeah, whatever. Worry about Mars, Elon. Worry about Mars.
Go raise another round. I think a lot of it too is it's PR, so then they can continue raising money, which AI is and continues to be a very capital hungry endeavor. But I think that it's now blown up in their faces PR wise, because the people using it are saying, well, it's not quite as good as we were promised. And you've been saying it's going to take jobs every 6 months for the last 18 months. So the math doesn't add up.
And, from a personnel standpoint, though, it does put people in different positions, because now, I'm not coding anymore. I'm just managing agents, and reviewing. So, I think that change for a lot of folks has been a little bit destabilizing, especially senior people have been, with these code bases 20 plus years. It's like getting them to change or adapt into something small will be very challenging, but getting them to completely revolutionize their entire workflow, they're going to push back a little bit, and I get it, but ultimately I feel like once these people kind of figure out okay, what's the capacity and capabilities here, it's too exciting. Anthropic, might be the fastest growing company of all time for good reason. Their tool is tantalizingly fun and incredible.
Yeah, it has almost this casino style addiction to it of oh, I can do this now. And you just kind of keep feeding it those tokens and pulling the lever on it, saying, what am I going to get next? But I think the other thing too is there's so much focus on the jobs that it's replacing, and what jobs it's going to take. The way that I often see it and chatting with even our clients, most people aren't finding any fulfillment in their job, because I think of it as Excel came out the same year the movie Back to the Future did. That was 40 years ago, and most businesses still run on it. People are not fulfilled by spending 40 hours a week moving cells between spreadsheets and replying to Roy in accounting for the 9th time saying, is this invoice paid? That's the kind of stuff that AI is already good enough to solve for, and that is the stuff that people need to get off their plates to do more important things, because how is that fulfilling? You talk to most employees and they go, I don't find any fulfillment in my job. Yes, a software developer in Silicon Valley getting paid 400 grand a year might find a lot of fulfillment writing code, but the other 80-90% of people in the workforce do not find a lot of fulfillment, and they're eager for stuff like this because they don't want to do that kind of work anymore.
Yeah. This is a good transition to start talking about Switchboard, which is your company, which people can find at withswitchboard.com. But before we kind of transition into there, job satisfaction with people. This is also something that kind of came at that same time where people are experimenting with bringing whole self to the office, was the idea of quiet quitting. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a sensitive area for me. I wonder how it affected you, largely because, I wasn't fortunate to have a lot of good role models. I had a couple, and that's all I needed. But what I did have was an example of a lot of negative role models that I never wanted to be. And I worked a ton of terrible jobs, and I got fired from terrible jobs. It's all these things are just, it's a horrible feeling in your gut. You want to feel, you're worthwhile. You want to find your tribe, and you want to have status in that tribe. And if you're not getting that from work, perhaps there's ways you can get it from outside of that. But as you get older, you're going to need that from work. You're going to need to feel that accomplishment. Now, I just wonder, is it the employer's responsibility to be fulfilling in some kind of way? Or if it is the staff that, like, if they're feeling a certain kind of way, like this isn't fulfilling me, it's like that's a signal to get out of there and to take a big leap. And, people want to talk about golden handcuffs. People want to talk about like, oh, this and that. But ultimately, it's like, no, man, this is the best time in the world to start a company, and why not do it yourself? If you're searching for, meaning, and your job isn't providing it, there's two ways you can go. The cowardice, horrible way is this quiet quitting. I'm just going to sit here and collect the check until I get fired and go on unemployment route. I met a lot of those guys, or it's like, what? I'm going to put my stake down and I'm going to go out there and create something new. And I think that's what's also so exciting about this time is if people are looking for meaning, it can't be delivered to you. You have to find it. You have to deliver it.
Yeah, I think we're in graduation season, and with all these commencement speeches, you watch, and I remember feeling this too. You watch the people giving commencement speeches saying, "Find your passion and go after that," and it's people their eyes glaze and their eyes roll back because they're like, it's easy for a billionaire, Harvard commencement speaker to say that option is not available to everyone, and that's what's fascinating to watch. Is like, it kind of is if you want it. I remember years ago hearing the phrase of, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. And so I think a lot of people say that they want things, but they won't put the effort in. And I think that that's what's fascinating about getting to know more entrepreneurs. Like, these are people who have really stuck it out when it's not tough. There is no playbook. There's no magical, handbook sitting in front of them of like, do this, then you'll be successful. You kind of have to mess it all up. You have to fail a bunch of times. But most people have too much fear to even try. And I get it. Again, going back to human nature, like, it's human nature to look for the easiest route or quote unquote laziest way possible. So I get it, because there's 7 billion of us and we can't all have the exact same amount of drive, but it's there if you want it.
Yeah, it is there if you want it, but you got to really want it and be willing to suffer for it. I mean, That's the other kind of mantra of the haters is they're like, oh, Zuck, yeah, it must be nice. Your parents gave you $1 million to get started. Or, oh, this person, like, everyone is looking for everyone, like everyone has privilege, as opposed to like being like looking at the opportunities that they've got, which is like, bro, you're alive in 2026. Like, you can really go and get it. I mean, to the point where I had a wonderful interview with a young lady named Sophia, and she's a model. That this podcast will come out, and she was talking about pretty privilege, about like how it's hard for her to be so beautiful, and she was. I just like, she is. I'm like, man, I don't understand that problem. But it's a legit problem. Like, she flies around the world, lives in luxury, wears designer clothes, is young and super hot. And like, that's a problem, So like, literally.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing of everyone. It's current, why the mental health amongst children is so bad, because it's so easy to compare yourself to a million people who everyone was born into some form of, they had a leg up in some way, or they had a deficiency in some way. But it's so easy to point at, well, they have this, they have that, because it's so easy to see in this culture that we promote, models or the billionaires who got $1 million from their parents as a leg up. But at the same time, being born in this day and age, like, you've already got, imagine trying to accomplish what people want to accomplish today 50 years ago or 50 years before that. Like, it's too easy to point at other reasons for lacking success.
I love it. I love it. For the aspiring founder listening to this show, take this to heart. Don't point, don't blame, don't think you got less than. Like, everybody who makes it, it's always a slog. It's always horrible and scary and terrifying, and you just do it anyway, you know? You just
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Nice. That was a fun soapbox.
Yeah.
But moving on, I do want to talk about Switchboard because, I speak to some agency folks and AI transformation experts and people that are building tools. And that sounds a little bit like what you're doing with Switchboard, which is kind of analyzing on a consulting capacity, like what are people doing in an organization, and then how can they use AI to supplement what they're doing and create custom tools. And what stood out for me is that you build these tools and they have complete ownership over them. So you're not creating bespoke software where you're charging a licensing. You're like, no, let me show you how to make this internally. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think our approach is we like working with mid-market companies because enterprise, you have a meeting about a decision that could have been an email 6 weeks ago. And small business, there's enough kind of off the shelf that they can figure out. But with AI, it's so fascinating to watch, the number of CEOs I get to chat with who are just like, we want AI. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Well, we want to be an AI first company. I was like, well, what does that look like? Well, we have AI everywhere in the business. Where? Like, how are you using it? And I think most people view AI as this amorphous blob of like, we just sign up for Claude or Gemini or OpenAI and we're good. We got AI now. But the fascinating thing to watch is like these companies have processes that are 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, and you have to rethink the process. And so that's our approach of like, how do we rethink the work through the lens of where AI can help? And if you think of, this is overly simplifying, but any process as kind of a factory line of, step 1, step 2, step 3, AI doesn't just get applied to all 30 steps in a process. It will help in step 2 and step 7 and step 12, but there's still humans in the loop. There's still other things that need to happen. And so we try to come in and understand, how do you currently work? How can we improve the process in general? And where can we inject AI and automation into it? And that is, I'm finding, at least, I'm a bit biased, but given that we get to work with all these kind of mid-market companies, that's what moves the needle, instead of, oh yeah, we gave everyone a Copilot or a Claude license and called it a day. Now we're AI first. It's not even half the story.
Yeah. When you think in a mid-market, are we thinking like 10 to 100 million annual run rate? Sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, like 50 to 500 million is kind of
50 to 500.
Yeah. Cool. But mid-market there's different definitions for everyone, but yeah, that's kind of where we look.
Yeah, those are companies typically that have a growth trajectory and they're kind of like climbing, or these kind of like institutional 40, 50, 60-year-old companies that are just like chugging along.
Well, that's my favorite ones to work with, where they do have 40 or 50 years of legacy, where, it's the founder, they may or may not still be there. But often it's, founded long enough ago that they're kind of stuck in their ways, but they're not so large that they can't change it.
Yeah.
But they're not so small that they don't have that operational maturity where AI is going to move the needle. So if you think about, let's call it an insurance brokerage, if they get, I don't know, let's say 200 quote requests a day, they're at a size where, like, if you can have AI look at 200 quotes a day and automatically assess what's needed and match it with the right insurance provider or carrier, like, that is a huge amount of time back. So it's that company size where they have that operational maturity of interesting challenges to solve, and the work actually moves the needle.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, and let's talk about maybe some like common threads within multiple clients. Mid-market, do they have similar problems? Are you using kind of like similar tools to build similar processes?
Yeah, a lot of them, as I'm sure you've seen and you kind of hinted at earlier, there's kind of this narrative publicly about the SaaS apocalypse and vibe coding can replace everything. Most companies aren't worried about that. What they're trying to solve for is every process is based around 10, 15 spreadsheets that people are sharing around each day. I had a call recently with a lead who didn't become a client, which will become apparent why in a sec, but he said they're about 150, 200 person company. He said, we've got our data architecture together. Like, we can just plug AI into this and it's gonna be wonderful. And he was so giddy and excited about it. I said, that's great. Like, I would love to see your data architecture then, if you don't mind sharing before we sign any NDA. He's like, absolutely, I'll pull it up. He pulled up an Excel file called Data Lake. So there was no data architecture. There was nothing there. And so a lot of it is just education. The common thread to your question is getting people to understand, like, you can't just point AI at a spreadsheet that 50 people are passing around by email all day. what is the stuff with, not to go too nerdy, but like, is there a tool that is a source of truth that has an API that you can plug other things into? And just that education of like the basics of how to run, call it a modern company on the technical side is kind of half the battle, because so many folks have this. I would say the frontier labs have kind of shot themselves in the foot to say, well, yeah, you can take a spreadsheet, just upload it to your Claude chat window. And that's great for kind of, call it single player. If you think about it in video game terms, there's single player games and multiplayer games. A business is a multiplayer environment. And most kind of leaders thinking about AI aren't understanding that you taking a spreadsheet, dropping it in Claude and chatting with it for 10 minutes is not the same as 20 brokers doing insurance quotes all day, and they're all working out of a CRM that has half the data, spreadsheets that have a third of the data, someone who had a call and no one thought to update someone else as the other third of the data. So getting people to understand like what they need to have as a foundation for AI to work well is the common thread.
I love that. It's I'm sure kind of coming in the beginning, it's like asking people to take their pants off. Because up front, they're like, oh, we're totally enabled. We got HubSpot, we got Notion, we got Slack. It's all together. We put it together with Claude and blah, blah, blah. But there's a couple of spreadsheets that actually is running the whole shebang.
Yes. And most of it is built by like one person in one team, and they know all the formulas and how it works and how they can run month end very quickly. But if that person is gone, no one in the business actually knows how month end happens. As a quick example, like we saw that recently with the finance team, they wanted to have everybody contribute to month end so that it happens quicker. But what they didn't realize is month end really happens with a bunch of people giving one person their spreadsheets, and they have some spreadsheet that no one else can understand. And so how do you automate that?
Totally. Yeah. Amazing. How big's the team?
We are at 20 now. So we started 2 years ago. We're at 20, and we've very purposefully grown slowly. I think we're now in an era where like we'll grow a lot quicker. Or my intention and it's playing out this way. We're growing a lot quicker, but the intention was to like really figure out the best way to go about doing this with companies, knowing that to your start of this discussion, the hardest part is the change management. Arguably, every time we get to that part of a project where yes, we can build all the cool technical systems in the world, it's the human side and rolling it out and getting people to rethink about how they do their job. That's the hard part. So we spent, I would say, the first couple of years kind of fine tuning what that looks like. And now we're growing.
Amazing. 2 years ago, you kicking off, like, how did you go to market? Where did you get your first customer?
Classic, some referrals here and there. And it's largely been, we haven't really put much effort into kind of call it classic sales. We've started to do that now. And so now I would say it's a mix of referrals and just sharing what we're doing on, like I post on LinkedIn a few times a week. We have, some ads around that, but we don't do a ton of outbound. So it started with kind of that classic entrepreneur journey of like, who's in your network? Who do you know? That kind of thing. And then just spiraled from there.
Cool. And what's the average cost of engagement for you guys?
It depends. Like, so we start with usually a strategy project in terms of, I'm very anti-management consultant. So strategy for us means we actually get in the business with a bunch of people, that kind of forward deployed engineer route, as I'm sure many have heard. But we get into the current process and sit down with people who are in the weeds of the work. And so that strategy project can be 2 to 8 weeks and, 20 to 100 grand, depending on the complexity of the business. And what we're really trying to figure out is what is the current process? What's all the data around that current process, and what tools are you using currently? And then we can present back to them and say, well, here's all of your opportunities, instead of, I think what you probably heard about too is, all these pilots where there's no real strategy around it. They just kind of like throw spaghetti at the wall, hoping it'll stick kind of thing. So we start with that. And then once that turns into a clear roadmap of what needs to be built, because Rome was not built in a day, we're able to do it faster than you would have been able to do 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but it still takes time to do. So then that turns into a monthly retainer to work with folks building out that roadmap.
Nice. And then what categories of business do you really like to work with?
I personally, it's a bit of a bias, working in kind of agency and consulting life, but I find professional services the most fascinating. We're pretty agnostic because at the end of the day, I always think of, as a business, if you take away the industry specifics and the people at play, at the end of the day, it's usually we have someone who starts as a lead. They are a client, a customer, or a user. We fulfill a service or deliver a product and invoice them for it. That's an oversimplification. So we're agnostic in that sense, but my favorite, to answer your question, is professional services, because it's so human focused. Like it's usually people interacting with other people, and the processes are not well defined because it's kind of, well, let's figure out the personalities at play and figure out the process as we go each time. But I think that makes for interesting challenges to solve with AI.
And then you're not kind of bumping heads with other engineers because I could see that. That's where I was kind of going with it is if you're getting into IT and maybe software companies, then they're like, well, why would you do this when,
Arguably, like to be blunt, IT teams are my least favorite to work with, because it's fascinating to me how many people in engineering leadership is very different. Classical IT, kind of break fix, password reset type IT, those folks are so stuck in a way of working that is so antiquated, I find, and so they view this technology as a threat oftentimes, and therefore their sticks in the mud every time, where they don't realize the power and benefits it could bring to them because they're trying to protect the way that they do things. But the way that they do things, I find, call it classical IT, is often very outdated.
oh, not to mention just like personal grooming and body odor off IT guys is just out of control. Nobody can handle that.
Well, depending on the company, but yeah, there's definitely a spectrum of IT stereotypes. Yeah.
I am teasing my IT people. I love
Be
you. I
kids.
love you. You know it's true.
Yeah. We love our IT people. That's the thing. At the end of the day, it's like it's a essential function, but the way it's done is often very antiquated.
Cool. Yeah, I've seen similar things as like very successful professional services, especially if you're talking about like attorneys or consultants that they've been doing stuff the way that it works for them for a long time. And, you want to talk about unstructured data. It's like, is that boxes and boxes of files that you're going to in that room over
Literal
there?
paper. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like
wild.
literal paper. Like, bro, you might have like a treasure trove of data over there. We got to get that
And
in
that's why,
the
like,
machine.
manufacturing, sure, there's some interesting challenges to solve, but it's literally often assembly lines, whereas professional services is by its nature not process oriented. It's
Yeah,
humans. They're paid well because their job is to figure stuff out as they go.
totally. 100%. Cool. Are you ready to enter the quantum round? This is the time in the podcast where we go to the quantum round.
I'm ready.
Cool. You have a co-founder named Joe. Talk about your relationship and basically where you guys kind of separate responsibilities.
Yeah, Joe has come to call us yin and yang, because we got to work together years ago, and we worked well together at the company we were at before because she likes all the things I don't, and I like all the things she doesn't, and that has translated extremely well to being co-founders. So she loves the kind of, call it, operational side of business operations, HR, finance type stuff. And I love the kind of marketing, sales, the strategy of the business, the strategy of the work that we do. So I would say, kind of share the service delivery, but everything else we divide and conquer.
Cool. And there's kind of a classic yin yang dynamic of kind of the visionary and the integrator. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
The visionary, like in the traction EOS mindset. Yeah, it's that visionary side. And that's why I think we have a shorthand where, like, we don't have to, there's never been a debate of who does what. It just naturally, like, oh, well, that's your lane. You enjoy that. This is my lane. I enjoy that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. What I love to look at about the about page is you put featured podcasts you've been in on your kind of about page, which I think is brilliant. Why is podcast guesting important to you?
I think it's just fascinating media. Like, I listen to podcasts endlessly. I spend hours listening to them every week, and I find it's interesting just to have the conversations. Like, I come into them with no preconceived notions of I want to promote our business or anything like that. I just love chatting with people, talking shop with people about stuff. And if it so happens to be interesting to others, then great. But the benefit is getting to your different perspectives and having that conversation about it.
Yeah, that's cool. Read some of your favorite podcasts.
So BCG, oddly enough, I'm not a huge fan of the classic management consultants, but BCG actually has a good one I'd recommend. I am far down the rabbit hole lately of, it's called The Rewatchables, which is going over old movies, but they just had Steven Spielberg on to chat about 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Getting to sit there with Spielberg talking about someone who everyone admires, but he also admires this stuff. It's great. And then Invest Like the Best is probably one of my favorite kind of business podcasts. And that's a investor who chats with kind of folks at the frontier of big businesses. So he just chatted with, as an example, like the CFO of Anthropic, and the guests he gets on is fascinating. Getting to hear about, what does it take to be the CFO of a business that is, to your point earlier, the fastest growing of all time in both revenue and users.
Yeah, was he like Scrooge McDuck? He just like in a vault of gold coins he swims around in all day?
Yeah, that was the gist of it, basically. I think. No, actually, that's what was fascinating. I'm sure some of it is PR spin and not totally accurate, but by and large, it's fascinating to hear how he's like, I don't know what is going on either. Like, I'm figuring this out as I go. Like, this is obscene what's happening. So I think they're even surprised at it.
What a business. My goodness.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You mentioned Spielberg. Are you a fan of Spielberg?
As a kid, yeah. I think as I've grown up, probably not. I like darker movies, so like Fincher is probably my favorite director, and Tarantino and stuff like that. Those are the types of movies I like.
Nice. I only mention it because he's got a new movie coming out called Disclosure Day in a couple of weeks.
Speaking of aliens.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I was kind of joking when I say we talk about aliens, but why not, man? What do you think of all this disclosure stuff?
I thought it was interesting to watch Obama walk it back, because I'm sure you probably saw in the news how he was chatting. I forget who he was chatting with, but it was an interview in the last few months where he was like, oh, yeah, well, there might be aliens. And everyone took that as they're not telling us something. And so, of course, he had to walk it back. But I thought what he said was like resonated for me, at least. So like, government security is not as good as everyone thinks. Like, if there was aliens, you would probably have some army ranger somewhere taking a selfie, sending it to his girlfriend, being like, see, they're real. Like, it probably would have come out by now. I do think they're out there, but I think if we knew about them, we as a society would probably know by now.
Yeah, I try not to take it too seriously, but I do get very excited about like trans-dimensional aliens, and they're talking about different races. You hear about this? There's like the Scandinavians, and there's the lizard aliens, there's the grays, and then there's like a praying mantis. And this is like coming from the most wild website ever, which is war.gov/UFO.
Okay, going down that rabbit hole after this.
Typing. But I mean, it's just exciting to me because, well, 10 years ago, if you're like, hey, man, there's going to be disclosures from the President of the United States, and it's coming from war.gov/UFO, I'd just be like, what kind of weird simulation are we in? But we are in.
I just want to see more proof. Like I think that's why it's kind of like religion for many people, of like, for all the reasons you can say it's real, you can say it's not, and vice versa. There just hasn't been like that tangible thing that everyone can point to of like, yes, aliens are real. I'm excited for that day because I think it will come.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be really interesting. But that's what made me think about Spielberg, because it seems like they've been like slowly disclosing what they know or what they don't know for, I mean, call it 10, 15 years. Like, people are stepping forward, whistleblowers, like all this information slowly leaking out. So then in my fantasy, they're going to show a picture of an alien or like a spacecraft, and we'll just be kind of like, oh, we already kind of knew that, right? They're like, the way they're sinking it in. But then if you think about like Spielberg, he's been on top of this for like 30, 40 years. Yeah. So, was there kind of like some kind of meeting with some Hollywood Illuminati where they're like, hey, we need you to help kind of like bring culture into a place where they're not going to freak out if there's trans-dimensional beings coming from a different dimension?
Yeah, you're farther down this rabbit hole than I am, but if I'm hearing what you're saying, it's like that would make sense of preparing society for that inevitable news, so it's not a shock to the system.
I'm really deep down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to gently start backing out of it just so we don't get entrenched there.
Well, now I've got war.gov/UFO to go look at after this to learn more. But
what a website, right?
Yeah, that's like, wild.
Wow, this is real. Okay. Yeah.
Well, not just anyone can buy a .gov website. Like, they're always a legit website. So
it's the White House. It's like literally from the Pentagon and the White House, the U.S. Department of War. Unbelievable. I see a keyboard back there. You play?
I do, yeah. I grew up playing drums, but those are are not conducive to living downtown in a condo. So piano it is now. But yeah, I've always loved music and enjoyed playing it.
Songwriter or what kind of stuff?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've never written anything, but it's fascinating to me to take what you would think of as not songs that translate to piano, and they do translate. So, like some good examples, Nine Inch Nails translates really well to piano, but also Lady Gaga, but also Kanye West. Like it's just fascinating of the songs that translate well to piano that aren't actually piano songs.
That's cool. So you doing cover stuff?
I guess, yeah. Like I just kind of learn as I go. It's been YouTube self-taught, but I love it. Do you play anything?
Yeah, I'm a songwriter. I play guitar and banjo, a little picking and singing. I'm Colorado boy, so that kind of stuff.
Yeah, fair. I noticed the droll came in.
Have you played around with any of the AI music generators?
Yeah, the before founding this, the company I was at, I hadn't really paid attention to them, but some friends that still work there, they worked on designing Suno, which is one of the more popular ones I've come to learn. And I went down a rabbit hole there. And speaking of songwriting, holy, it's wild how it can understand what you want from text, and what you hear is like, yeah, that's actually kind of what I was thinking of. It's eerie at how good it's gotten that quickly.
Well, in Suno, I haven't played with it yet. I'm kind of intimidated by the AI generating stuff because it's so fun. I feel like once I start doing that, I'm just done. That's all
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. But you can like hum melodies and stuff, and be like you could prompt it to say like, I want this to sound like a 1970s folk song with this instrumentation produced by this guy. Here's the melody. Here's some lyrics, and it just makes it.
Yeah, and it sounds legit. I mean, the downside is like it was obviously trained on all music ever, and that's there's something to be said for the copyright and artists and whatnot. But at the same time, the power that it gives to anyone who maybe doesn't have a great singing voice or doesn't know a syncopated beat from a 4/4 on the floor kind of, or a four on the floor kind of thing, they can also make stuff that maybe they've had in their head but they didn't know how to get out there. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and there's litigation going on right now for the music attorneys, which those are the scariest goons on planet Earth, is IP
They want their
music
money.
attorneys.
I know I
Yeah.
saw Garth Brooks yesterday announce he's putting his catalog up for sale, and they think early bidding will go for about $2 billion for one
Why would he
artist.
do that? Why would
Great,
he do that?
great question. No idea. Everyone's selling though. I mean, Taylor Swift sold hers a while ago. Bieber sold his. Now we got Garth Brooks. I couldn't tell you why. It's sad to see, if anything, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you want to buy an island or something, or
Yeah,
I
who
don't know.
knows? I mean, yeah, $2 billion is not a small sum, I guess. If all you, I know it took a lot of creative spirit and talent and time, but if all you really did at the end of the day is wrote some lyrics and picked a guitar, and you can sell that for $2 billion, like that's impressive.
Well, he's got to maintain that Chris Gaines lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's what he's really doing. He's going to keep the Chris Gaines catalog, and he's going to sell the Garth Brooks to fund his superstardom as Chris Gaines once and for all.
This is Chris Gaines' time to come back. Garth Brooks is over.
His his emo era is back.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is interesting though, because I mean, if whatever concession that these frontier models make with the music goons, that could really spill over in a lot of ways. You ever get concerned about that? About like you're building bespoke solutions that is there IP you have to check to see if you're stepping on anybody's toes?
I have gone through the legalese very deeply, and I'm not concerned on a personal level. But I am curious to see. It'll inevitably be, I think, either washed under the rug, and nothing will ever come of any of these lawsuits for IP, or there will be a domino that falls where someone somewhere, because all the frontier labs have everyone from New York Times to Universal Music Group to the movie studios, like everyone is suing them for how they train this stuff. So I think it's classic law of like, it's if a precedent is set by one of them winning, then we'll see dominoes fall, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Cool. Talking to you before, I know that SBCA is important to you. Tell us a little bit about that organization.
Or SPCA is for the animals. I know that there's a lot of nonprofits out there for us humans, but speaking of giving voice to people, I've always been a big supporter of SPCA. I used to volunteer a fair amount, and I would like to get back into that. But if anyone's looking as a way to give back. I think our animal friends could use more help.
Yeah. And SPCA, my apologies, I said the wrong thing, which is spcai.org. It looks like they're doing kind of like adoption services for puppies. Is that it?
For all sorts of animals. So they'll take in everything from strays to, old lady passed away and can't, the cat's sitting there and doesn't have a place to go. So they take in animals and take care of them, rehabilitate them. Sometimes they've got a large effort around rehabilitation too.
Amazing. You got any pets?
No, I just moved actually. So now I'm going to go visit them soon for a dog. I haven't had one in a few years, so it's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
I know. I've been thinking about a new pet too. I have a beautiful cat named Bird, and
Nice.
she's around here somewhere.
Great name.
But it's like well, I've always wanted a bird, and I'd probably name a cat. But birds, they last a long time, and so do snakes. I would like to have both, either a snake or a bird. But I went down this like TikTok rabbit hole. There's all these people that are like kind of going Beastmaster with like wild birds, and over the span of like months and months, slowly like train them how to like be like their pet, but they live outside and they'll like fly up and ask for food, and you feed them and you can bring them and pet them and stuff.
Wild. Yeah. I went down a TikTok rabbit hole of Maya something. I forget her last name, but she gave a TED talk here a couple months ago, and she started a rehabilitation center. And instead of asking for local donations, she set up cameras around the rehabilitation center. And it was fascinating to see how they rehabilitate birds and how they, to your point, can train them. But the other thing was she streamed it all on Twitch. And so instead of asking for local donations, hoping that people in the local vicinity would contribute, she's raised like millions and millions of dollars because she put a rehabilitation center on Twitch and live streamed it all, which is fascinating to see, just kind of like these modern ways to go about raising money for these efforts to help animals that like, broken wing or whatever it might be.
Yeah. You need influencers. They make everything.
They will save us all.
They make everything better and worse.
Totally. That's As the distillation of what influencers do, they are both a net negative and positive somehow.
Yeah, I saw this one video. It's sticking with me. He was mountain biking and he had like a pet raven, or he had like befriended this raven. And so it was flying along with him. And when he would stop, it would land on his shoulder, and it knew English. So it'd be like, pretty bird, pretty bird. And then he'd give it a peanut or something. I'm like, oh my God. Apparently like ravens and crows are really, really smart.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I was
especially
like,
crows, which is so weird because they're so annoying, but
yeah. They're very chatty, but I mean, if it spoke English, I mean, I suppose if it's a good phrase, it wouldn't get too annoying. But I was just like, man, that would be amazing,
I saw there's a research lab in the UK. They think, I haven't seen the proof yet, but it's a reputable lab that they've made announcements of, like they'll release the research soon, but they think they figured out how to use AI to translate animal speaking.
Amazing.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating. If it is real, what a different world we'll live in.
Yeah, just like more food. I'm tired.
Yes.
More food.
I hate
Pretty
you.
much what I
love
say.
You. I hate you. I love you.
Amazing. Justin, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on the show. If I'm a mid-market company and I'm listening to this podcast because I'm looking for tactics and tasks, I feel lost and I'm drowning in trying to figure out how to implement AI, how to become AI native. And you're not the first to say it. Anytime people say like, hey, we help people become AI native, I'm like, what does that mean? And it means something different for absolutely everybody. So it's really important to have your guy. And Justin, if you're that guy, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
You mentioned earlier our website is withswitchboard.com, but if they search me up on LinkedIn, Justin Watt, W-A-T-T, I think I'm one of the only ones on there. They'll come across me, and DMs are open. So if anyone has any questions, like I said earlier too, before we started chatting, I think of like, I'm not here to kind of pitch what we do. I just think that there's so much potential with all of this. So even if someone just has questions and they're not looking for our services, feel free to shoot me a DM.
Cool. I love it. This is really fun conversation. I appreciate you being open to it. Justin, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it goes both ways. Thanks, Ryan.
Every founder I know is posting on LinkedIn, grinding on X, maybe dabbling in short form video. And the dirty secret nobody wants to say out loud is you don't own any of it. One algorithm change and your audience evaporates overnight. The only audience you actually own is your email list. That's why the smartest founders in the world are building newsletters, and Inbox Alchemy builds it for you. They create your weekly founder newsletter, design a beautiful newsletter website, and grow your audience to 25,000 subscribers in the first 6 months. All of it is managed so it drives real pipeline. It builds your reputation, it nurtures the relationships that turns into deals, partnerships, and opportunities you can't even predict yet. Social is rented, email is owned. The founders who figured that out early win for decades. Go to inboxalchemy.co, that's inboxalchemy.co, and start building the audience that's actually yours. What if you had a partnership manager working for your podcast full-time, reaching out to brands, securing deals, handling all the back and forth while you just focused on making great content? That's Casey. Casey is the AI partnership agent from Howdy who actually goes out and gets your sponsors. Casey reaches out to brands on your behalf, works the conversation, and lands the partnership. You make the show, Casey makes the money. And look, Casey doesn't sleep, she doesn't lose track of follow-ups, and she never gets discouraged by a non-reply. Casey's out there right now working for podcasters who figured this out before you did. The only question is whether your show has a Casey yet. So go meet Casey at gethowdy.com. That's GETHOWDI.com. Takes a couple of minutes to get started, and Casey gets to work immediately. That's gethowdy.com.